Right now, as you listen to this, your brain is doing something that could be destroying your potential without you even realizing it. It's scanning for problems. It's looking for what's wrong, what's broken, what needs to be fixed. And while this might seem natural, even helpful, it's actually the single biggest reason why most people stay stuck in mediocrity, while a small percentage rise to extraordinary success. Here's what separates the top 1% from everyone else. They don't think about problems the way you do. While 99% of people get trapped in problem-focused thinking, spinning their wheels trying to figure out what's wrong, the ultra-successful have mastered something completely different. They focus on solutions. Not just any solutions, but systematic, strategic, solution-focused thinking that transforms obstacles into opportunities and challenges into breakthroughs. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't about ignoring reality or pretending problems don't exist. This is about rewiring your brain to operate at a fundamentally different level. By the time you finish this, you'll understand why your current approach to problems is keeping you stuck. And more importantly, you'll have the exact framework the most successful people use to turn any challenge into a stepping stone toward their goals. The difference between problem-focused and solution-focused thinking isn't just a mindset shift. It's the difference between being reactive and proactive, between being a victim of circumstances and being the architect of your success. Today, you're going to learn how to make that shift permanently. Chapter 1. The problem-focused trap. That's destroying your success. Let me start with a brutal truth that most people refuse to acknowledge. Your brain is wired to fail. Not because it's broken, but because it's operating on ancient programming that's completely mismatched for the modern world. Your brain evolved to scan for threats, to identify dangers, to focus on what could go wrong. In a world of predators and survival, this served our ancestors well. But in today's world, this same mechanism is sabotaging your success every single day. Here's how it works. When you encounter a challenge, your brain immediately shifts into threat detection mode. It starts cataloging everything that's wrong, everything that could go wrong, every reason why this problem is insurmountable. Your mental energy gets consumed by analysis paralysis, worst-case scenario thinking, and an endless loop of identifying more and more aspects of the problem. Meanwhile, the solution sits right there, invisible to your problem-focused brain. Think about the last major challenge you faced. What did you spend most of your time thinking about? If you're like 99% of people, you spent hours, maybe days, dissecting the problem. You talked about it with friends. You worried about it. You analyzed every angle of what was wrong. You became an expert on the problem itself. But how much time did you actually spend generating, evaluating, and implementing solutions? Probably a fraction of the time you spent dwelling on the problem. This is the problem-focused trap, and it's everywhere. In businesses, teams spend entire meetings discussing what's going wrong instead of brainstorming how to fix it. Individuals spend years complaining about their circumstances instead of taking action to change them. Students focus on how hard a subject is instead of developing strategies to master it. People in relationships focus on what their partner does wrong instead of creating solutions for better communication. The most insidious part of this trap is that it feels productive. When you're analyzing a problem, when you're discussing what's wrong, when you're identifying all the obstacles, it feels like you're doing important work. Your brain gets a hit of dopamine from the activity, making you believe you're making progress. But you're not. You're just getting better at seeing problems, which only makes you more likely to see them everywhere. This creates a vicious cycle that destroys potential. The more you focus on problems, the better your brain becomes at spotting them. The better you get at spotting problems, the more overwhelmed and helpless you feel. The more overwhelmed you feel, the less likely you are to take action. The less action you take, the more problems accumulate. And the cycle continues, keeping you trapped in a reactive, victim-like mindset that guarantees mediocrity. Meanwhile, the people who are achieving extraordinary results have broken free from this trap entirely. They've trained their brains to operate differently. When they encounter a challenge, their first instinct isn't to analyze what's wrong. Their first instinct is to ask, what's the solution? How can we fix this? What's the fastest path forward? This isn't just a different approach to thinking. It's a different approach to living. But here's what's really happening at a neurological level. Every time you focus on a problem, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with problem identification and threat detection. You're literally rewiring your brain to become better at seeing what's wrong. Every time you focus on solutions, you're strengthening completely different neural pathways associated with creativity, resourcefulness, and forward momentum. You're training your brain to become a solution-generating machine. The difference in results is staggering. Problem-focused people spend their lives putting out fires, constantly reacting to circumstances, always feeling behind. Solution-focused people spend their lives building, creating, and moving forward with purpose and clarity. They encounter the same challenges as everyone else, but they process them completely differently, which leads to completely different outcomes. This isn't about talent, intelligence, or luck. It's about which neural pathways you've been strengthening. And the good news is, regardless of how long you've been trapped in problem-focused thinking, you can rewire your brain starting today. Neuroplasticity means your brain is constantly changing based on what you focus on. Focus on problems, and you become a problem-focused person. Focus on solutions, and you become a solution-focused person. The choice is yours, but the stakes couldn't be higher. Chapter 2. Why your brain defaults to problems and how it's sabotaging your life. To understand why shifting to solution-focused thinking is so powerful, you need to understand exactly why your brain defaults to problems in the first place. This isn't a character flaw or a personal weakness. This is hardwired biology that served a purpose for thousands of years, but is now actively working against your success. Once you understand the mechanism, you can begin to override it. Your brain operates on what psychologists call a negativity bias. This means your brain gives significantly more weight to negative information than positive information. Studies show that it takes approximately 5 positive experiences to counterbalance 1 negative experience in your brain. Your brain is literally designed to pay more attention to what's wrong than what's right, what's dangerous than what's safe, what's broken than what's working. From an evolutionary perspective, this made perfect sense. The human who noticed the rustling bush and assumed it was a predator lived longer than the human who assumed it was just the wind. The person who focused on potential threats and problems had a better chance of survival than the person who ignored them. Your ancestors who made it through thousands of years of danger and passed on their genes were the ones with highly developed threat detection systems. But here's the problem. Your brain can't tell the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and a work deadline. It can't distinguish between a life-threatening predator and a difficult conversation with your boss. Your threat detection system treats every challenge as if it's a matter of life and death, flooding your system with stress hormones and triggering the same fight-or-flight response that helped your ancestors survive actual threats. This creates what researchers call the problem-focused loop. When your brain perceives a threat or challenge, it immediately shifts into hypervigilant mode, scanning for every possible danger, every potential obstacle, every way things could go wrong. This was useful when the threat was external and immediate, like a predator that needed to be avoided. But when the threat is internal or complex, like a career challenge or relationship issue, this same mechanism becomes counterproductive. Instead of helping you escape danger, it traps you in endless loops of worry, analysis, and problem identification. Your brain becomes so focused on cataloging everything that's wrong that it has no mental resources left for creativity, innovation, or solution generation. You become an expert on the problem but remain clueless about the solution. This is compounded by what psychologists call confirmation bias. Once your brain decides something is a problem, it starts looking for evidence to confirm that belief. It filters reality to show you more evidence of the problem, while filtering out potential solutions. If you believe your job is terrible, your brain will notice every negative aspect of your work environment while ignoring the positive aspects. If you believe a relationship is failing, your brain will focus on every conflict while overlooking moments of connection and compatibility. The result is that problems appear to grow larger and more complex over time, while solutions appear to become more distant and unrealistic. This isn't because the problems are actually getting worse or the solutions are actually becoming less viable. It's because your brain is literally programming itself to see more problems and fewer solutions. Modern society makes this even worse. We're constantly bombarded with problem-focused information. News media makes money by highlighting what's wrong with the world. Social media algorithms promote content that triggers emotional responses, which usually means content that makes you angry, worried, or upset. Even well-meaning conversations with friends often turn into problem-focused discussions where everyone takes turns sharing what's going wrong in their lives. This creates an environment where problem-focused thinking is not only normal, but actively reinforced by everything around you. You're swimming in a sea of problem-focused information, and your brain is absorbing all of it, becoming more and more skilled at identifying what's wrong while losing its ability to generate solutions. But here's what the top 1% understand that others don't. This is all programming, and programming can be changed. Your brain's default mode isn't permanent. With conscious effort and the right techniques, you can override your biological programming and train your brain to default to solution-focused thinking instead. The key is understanding that your brain is like a muscle. Whatever you exercise gets stronger. If you exercise problem identification, you become incredibly good at spotting problems. If you exercise solution generation, you become incredibly good at creating solutions. The neural pathways you use most frequently become your brain's default mode of operation. This means that every time you catch yourself focusing on a problem and consciously redirect your attention to potential solutions, you're doing more than just solving that particular challenge. You're literally rewiring your brain to become more solution-focused in general. You're building mental muscle that will serve you in every area of your life. The people who achieve extraordinary results haven't eliminated challenges from their lives. They've simply trained their brains to process challenges differently. Instead of getting stuck in problem analysis, they immediately shift to solution generation. Instead of becoming experts on what's wrong, they become experts on what's possible. This single shift changes everything. Chapter 3. The solution-focused mindset that separates winners from everyone else. Now that you understand why your brain defaults to problems, let's talk about what separates the ultra-successful from everyone else. The solution-focused mindset. This isn't just a different way of thinking about challenges. It's a completely different operating system that changes how you process information, make decisions, and take action. The solution-focused mindset starts with a fundamental assumption that most people reject. Every problem contains the seeds of its own solution. This doesn't mean every problem is easy to solve or that solutions are always obvious. It means that within every challenge lies information, resources, or opportunities that can be leveraged to create a pathway forward. Problem-focused people see obstacles. Solution-focused people see data. When a solution-focused person encounters a challenge, their brain immediately starts asking different questions. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of, "This is impossible," they ask, "What would have to be true for this to be possible?" Instead of, "What's wrong with this situation?" they ask, "What resources do I have that I haven't considered?" This shift in questioning completely changes the information your brain has access to. Your brain is essentially a search engine, and the questions you ask determine what results you get. Ask problem-focused questions, and your brain will search for and deliver problem-focused answers. Ask solution-focused questions, and your brain will search for and deliver solution-focused answers. But solution-focused thinking goes deeper than just asking different questions. It involves a fundamental shift in how you view your relationship to challenges. Problem-focused people see themselves as victims of circumstances, reacting to things that happen to them. Solution-focused people see themselves as agents of change, actively shaping their circumstances through their responses. This creates what psychologists call an internal locus of control. Instead of believing that your success or failure is determined by external factors beyond your control, you operate from the belief that your results are primarily determined by your choices, actions, and responses. This doesn't mean you ignore external factors or pretend you have control over everything. It means you focus your energy on the variables you can influence rather than the variables you can't. Solution-focused people also operate with what researchers call a growth mindset. They view challenges not as threats to be avoided, but as opportunities to develop new capabilities. When they encounter something they don't know how to do, their first thought isn't, "I can't do this." Their first thought is, "I can't do this yet." That simple word, "yet," transforms a fixed limitation into a temporary condition that can be changed through effort and learning. This mindset shift has profound implications for how you approach goals and obstacles. Problem-focused people tend to abandon goals when they encounter significant challenges because they interpret obstacles as evidence that the goal is unrealistic or that they lack the necessary capabilities. Solution-focused people interpret obstacles as information about what they need to learn, develop, or acquire to achieve their goals. The most successful people in any field share this characteristic. They don't see obstacles as reasons to quit. They see obstacles as curricula. Every challenge becomes a lesson in disguise. Every setback becomes data for course correction. Every failure becomes feedback for improvement. This allows them to persist through difficulties that would stop most people in their tracks. But perhaps the most important aspect of solution-focused thinking is what researchers call solution efficacy. The belief that solutions exist and that you have the capability to find them. This isn't blind optimism or wishful thinking. It's a practical assumption based on evidence. Throughout human history, people have consistently found ways to solve problems that initially seemed impossible. Every technology you use, every convenience you enjoy, every system that makes your life easier exists because someone refused to accept that a problem was unsolvable. The airplane exists because the Wright brothers didn't accept that human flight was impossible. The internet exists because computer scientists didn't accept that global communication was too complex. Every breakthrough in human history started with someone who maintained solution efficacy in the face of apparent impossibility. Solution-focused people understand that the vast majority of limitations are temporary and contextual, not permanent and absolute. They know that impossible usually just means we haven't figured out how to do it yet. They approach challenges with curiosity rather than resignation, with resourcefulness rather than helplessness. This creates a completely different emotional relationship to challenges. Problem-focused people experience anxiety, frustration, and stress when they encounter obstacles because they interpret obstacles as threats. Solution-focused people experience excitement, curiosity, and motivation when they encounter obstacles because they interpret obstacles as puzzles to be solved. The emotional difference is crucial because your emotional state directly affects your cognitive capabilities. When you're stressed and anxious, your brain's executive functions are impaired. You have less access to creativity, innovation, and complex problem-solving. When you're excited and curious, your brain operates at peak performance. You have full access to your creative and analytical capabilities. This means that solution-focused people don't just think differently about problems. They literally have access to better mental resources for solving them. Their mindset creates a positive feedback loop where challenges enhance rather than diminish their problem-solving capabilities. Chapter 4. The Solution Focus Framework that Guarantees Results. Understanding the mindset is just the beginning. To actually transform how you approach challenges, you need a systematic framework that you can apply to any situation. The most successful people don't just happen to think about solutions. They have specific, repeatable processes that automatically direct their attention towards solutions and away from problems. This framework consists of 5 sequential steps that take you from problem identification to solution implementation. Each step is designed to counteract your brain's natural tendency to get stuck in problem analysis and, instead, redirect your mental energy toward productive action. Step 1 is problem acknowledgement without problem immersion. This is a crucial distinction that most people miss. You can't solve a problem you don't acknowledge, but you also can't solve a problem you're drowning in. The key is to identify and define the problem clearly and concisely. Then immediately shift your focus to solution generation. Problem acknowledgement means stating the challenge in specific, factual terms, without adding emotional commentary or catastrophic interpretations. Instead of, "This is a disaster and everything is falling apart," you say, "Our revenue decreased by 15% this quarter." Instead of, "I'm terrible at public speaking and I'll never get better," you say, "I experience anxiety when speaking in front of groups." The goal is to get clear on what actually needs to be solved without triggering your brain's threat detection system. Step 2 is resource inventory. Before your brain can generate effective solutions, it needs to know what resources are available. Most people skip this step and jump straight to solution brainstorming, which limits their options to the most obvious approaches. Resource inventory forces you to take stock of everything you have available to address the challenge. Resources include obvious things like money, time, and skills, but they also include less obvious assets like relationships, knowledge, experience, tools, and even past failures that provided valuable lessons. The key is to brainstorm exhaustively without immediately judging whether each resource is sufficient or relevant. Your goal is to create a comprehensive list of everything you have to work with. This step is crucial because it shifts your brain from scarcity thinking to abundance thinking. When you focus only on what you lack, your brain operates from a sense of limitation and impossibility. When you focus on what you have, your brain starts seeing possibilities and connections it previously missed. Step 3 is solution generation through systematic brainstorming. This is where most people's approach to problem-solving completely breaks down. They either generate one or two obvious solutions and stop there, or they get overwhelmed by trying to find the perfect solution immediately. Effective solution generation requires both quantity and systematic thinking. The goal in this step is to generate as many potential solutions as possible without immediately evaluating their feasibility. Your brain has two different modes: creative mode and analytical mode. They can't operate simultaneously, so you need to separate solution generation from solution evaluation. During this phase, no idea is too crazy, too expensive, or too difficult. Your only job is to generate options. Use specific prompting questions to stimulate creative thinking. If money were no object, how would I solve this? If I had all the time in the world, what would I do? If I could get help from anyone, who would I ask, and what would I ask them to do? What would someone with completely different background and experience do in this situation? How have other people solved similar challenges? The key is to push past your first few obvious ideas and force your brain to get creative. The best solutions are rarely the first ones you think of. They emerge when you push beyond conventional thinking and start exploring unconventional approaches. Step 4 is solution, evaluation, and selection. Now you switch from creative mode to analytical mode. You take all the solutions you generated and evaluate them based on specific criteria: feasibility, cost, time requirement, likelihood of success, and potential for additional benefits beyond solving the immediate problem. Create a simple scoring system where you rate each solution on a scale from 1 to 5 for each criterion. Then add up the scores. This prevents you from being swayed by solutions that sound exciting but aren't practical, or from dismissing solutions that seem boring but are highly effective. The goal isn't necessarily to find the perfect solution. It's to find the best solution given your current resources and constraints. Remember that you can always implement one solution now and implement additional solutions later if needed. Step 5 is implementation with progress tracking. This is where solution-focused thinking diverges most dramatically from problem-focused thinking. Problem-focused people often stop once they've identified a potential solution, treating the identification itself as the accomplishment. Solution-focused people understand that solutions only create results when they're implemented consistently and adjusted based on feedback. Create a specific implementation plan with clear action steps, deadlines, and success metrics. Build in regular check-in points where you evaluate progress and make adjustments as needed. Most solutions require iteration and refinement. So, treat your initial implementation as an experiment rather than a final answer. Track both outcome metrics and process metrics. Outcome metrics tell you whether the solution is working. Process metrics tell you whether you're implementing the solution consistently. Both types of feedback are crucial for continuous improvement. This framework transforms problem-solving from a chaotic, emotional process into a systematic, strategic process. Instead of getting overwhelmed by challenges, you have a clear pathway from problem identification to solution implementation. Instead of spinning your wheels in analysis paralysis, you have a structured approach that maintains forward momentum. Chapter 5. Advanced Solution. Focused strategies for complex challenges. While the basic framework handles most everyday challenges, complex problems require advanced strategies. These are the techniques that separate good problem solvers from extraordinary ones. They're the methods that allow you to tackle challenges that seem impossible and find solutions that others miss entirely. The first advanced strategy is systems thinking. Most people approach problems as isolated incidents, but complex challenges are usually symptoms of larger systemic issues. Solution-focused people learn to zoom out and examine the broader system to find leverage points where small changes can create large improvements. Systems thinking starts with mapping the relationships between different elements of a problem. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with this specific situation?" you ask, "What patterns, processes, or structures are creating this type of situation repeatedly?" Instead of treating symptoms, you identify and address root causes. For example, if you're consistently missing deadlines, a surface-level solution might be working longer hours. A systems thinking approach would examine your entire workflow, how you estimate time requirements, how you prioritize tasks, how you handle interruptions, how you manage energy levels throughout the day. The solution might involve changing your estimation process, redesigning your workspace, or establishing new boundaries with colleagues. Systems thinking often reveals that what appears to be a resource problem is actually a design problem. You don't need more time. You need better systems for managing time. You don't need more money. You need better systems for generating and managing money. You don't need more willpower. You need better systems that require less willpower. The second advanced strategy is constraint theory. This comes from the principle that every system is limited by its weakest link. Instead of trying to improve everything simultaneously, you identify the single constraint that's limiting your entire system and focus all your resources on eliminating that constraint. This requires honest analysis of where your bottlenecks actually exist. Most people assume their constraints are external, things like lack of money, time, or opportunities. But often the real constraints are internal, limiting beliefs, inadequate skills, poor systems, or ineffective habits. Once you identify your primary constraint, you apply what researchers call constraint elevation. You either improve the constraint's capacity or you restructure your system so that constraint is no longer the limiting factor. Sometimes this means developing new capabilities. Sometimes it means delegating or outsourcing. Sometimes it means changing your approach entirely. The power of constraint theory is that it prevents you from wasting energy on improvements that don't actually matter. If your constraint is lead generation, improving your sales presentation won't significantly impact your results. If your constraint is time management, learning advanced marketing techniques won't help. By focusing exclusively on your true constraints, you maximize the impact of your efforts. The third advanced strategy is solution stacking. Instead of looking for single solutions to complex problems, you combine multiple smaller solutions that work synergistically. This approach recognizes that complex challenges often require multifaceted responses. Solution stacking starts with breaking complex problems into smaller, more manageable components. Instead of trying to solve, "I want to build a successful business," you break it down into specific challenges: market research, product development, customer acquisition, operations management, financial planning. Each component can then be addressed with targeted solutions. The key is to look for solutions that address multiple components simultaneously. The best solutions often create positive spillover effects that improve several areas at once. For example, creating high-quality content for your business might simultaneously address customer education, brand building, lead generation, and search engine optimization. Solution stacking also involves sequencing your solutions strategically. Some solutions create prerequisites for other solutions. Some solutions compound when implemented together. By thinking strategically about the order and combination of your solutions, you can create momentum that accelerates your progress. The fourth advanced strategy is solution modeling. Instead of starting from scratch, you study how others have solved similar problems and adapt their approaches to your specific situation. This dramatically reduces the time and energy required to generate effective solutions. Solution modeling involves identifying people or organizations that have successfully addressed challenges similar to yours. You study their strategies, processes, and decision-making frameworks. You identify the principles behind their success and adapt those principles to your context. The key is to focus on principles rather than tactics. Tactics are specific actions that work in specific situations. Principles are underlying truths that can be applied across different contexts. For example, the specific marketing tactics that work for a software company might not work for a restaurant, but the principles of understanding your customer, creating value, and building trust apply universally. Solution modeling also involves studying failures, not just successes. By understanding what doesn't work and why, you can avoid costly mistakes and identify potential pitfalls before you encounter them. The fifth advanced strategy is solution evolution. This recognizes that the best solutions often emerge through iteration rather than perfect initial design. Instead of trying to find the perfect solution immediately, you implement good enough solutions and improve them based on real-world feedback. Solution evolution starts with rapid prototyping, creating quick, low-cost versions of potential solutions that allow you to test your assumptions and gather data. Instead of spending months planning the perfect approach, you spend days or weeks testing imperfect approaches and learning from the results. This approach is particularly powerful for complex challenges where you can't predict all the variables in advance. Instead of trying to plan for every contingency, you create adaptive solutions that can be modified based on what you learn through implementation. Solution evolution also involves building feedback loops into your solutions. You establish metrics and checkpoints that tell you whether your solutions are working and how they can be improved. This allows you to course correct quickly rather than persisting with ineffective approaches. These advanced strategies transform your approach to complex challenges. Instead of being overwhelmed by complexity, you have specific tools for breaking down and systematically addressing even the most difficult problems. Instead of hoping for breakthrough insights, you have reliable methods for generating innovative solutions. Chapter 6. How to reprogram your brain for automatic solution finding. The difference between people who occasionally think about solutions and people who automatically find solutions in every situation comes down to neural programming. Your brain operates on habits, and right now, your mental habits are probably programmed for problem identification rather than solution generation. But with the right techniques, you can literally rewire your brain to make solution-focused thinking your default mode of operation. This reprogramming process works because of neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to form new neural pathways throughout your life. Every thought you think strengthens certain neural connections while weakening others. Every time you catch yourself focusing on a problem and consciously redirect to solutions, you're building new mental pathways. Do this consistently enough, and solution-focused thinking becomes as automatic as breathing. The first reprogramming technique is called the solution interrupt. This is a pattern interrupt that stops problem-focused thinking before it gains momentum. The moment you notice yourself analyzing what's wrong with a situation, you immediately ask yourself, what's one thing I could do right now to improve this situation? This question forces your brain to shift from analysis mode to action mode. The key is to make this interrupt automatic. Set reminders on your phone to ask yourself this question every hour for the first week. Write it on sticky notes and place them where you'll see them regularly. The goal is to interrupt problem-focused thinking so consistently that your brain starts making the shift automatically. The second technique is solution priming. This involves deliberately exposing your brain to solution-focused information throughout the day. Instead of starting your morning by checking news or social media, which primes your brain for problem-focused thinking, start with content that showcases human ingenuity, problem-solving, and achievement. Read biographies of people who overcame significant challenges. Listen to podcasts about innovation and entrepreneurship. Watch documentaries about breakthrough discoveries. Study case studies of companies that turned around from failure to success. This isn't about blind positivity. It's about training your brain to see examples of successful problem-solving so it knows what's possible. Solution priming also involves changing your language patterns. Problem-focused people use language that emphasizes limitations. I can't. It's impossible. There's no way. This always happens. Solution-focused people use language that emphasizes possibilities. How might I? What if? There must be a way. This is interesting. Your language doesn't just reflect your thinking, it shapes your thinking. When you consistently use solution-focused language, you literally program your brain to look for solutions. Start paying attention to your internal dialogue and consciously replace problem-focused phrases with solution-focused alternatives. The third technique is called solution visualization. This leverages your brain's inability to distinguish between vivid imagination and actual experience. When you visualize yourself successfully solving problems, your brain strengthens the same neural pathways that would be activated if you were actually solving those problems. Spend 5 minutes each day visualizing yourself, encountering a challenge, and smoothly transitioning into solution mode. See yourself staying calm and confident. Hear yourself asking the right questions. Feel the satisfaction of implementing an effective solution. Make the visualization as detailed and emotionally engaging as possible. The more you practice this mental rehearsal, the more natural, solution-focused thinking becomes in real situations. Your brain has already practiced the pattern, so it knows exactly what to do when you encounter actual challenges. The fourth technique is environmental design. Your physical environment constantly influences your mental state, usually without your conscious awareness. Solution-focused people design their environments to trigger solution-focused thinking automatically. This might mean surrounding yourself with reminders of past successes, keeping solution-focused books visible, or displaying quotes that reinforce resourcefulness and creativity. Remove environmental triggers that promote problem-focused thinking. Negative news, complainers, or reminders of past failures. Your digital environment is equally important. Curate your social media feeds to include people who share solutions, innovations, and positive examples of problem-solving. Unfollow accounts that consistently focus on problems without offering solutions. Subscribe to newsletters and channels that showcase human achievement and possibility. The fifth technique is accountability partnership. Your brain changes faster when your new thinking patterns are reinforced by social interaction. Find someone who shares your commitment to solution-focused thinking and check in with each other regularly. Share the challenges you're facing and the solutions you're implementing. Celebrate each other's progress in making this mental shift. Challenge each other when you slip back into problem-focused thinking. Having external accountability accelerates the reprogramming process and makes it more likely to stick. These techniques work because they address reprogramming at multiple levels: conscious attention, subconscious exposure, mental rehearsal, environmental influence, and social reinforcement. Used consistently, they create a compound effect that transforms solution-focused thinking from an occasional practice into an automatic response. Chapter 7. The Art of Reframing Any Problem into an Opportunity. One of the most powerful skills successful people possess is the ability to reframe problems as opportunities. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending difficulties don't exist. It's about training your brain to automatically look for the hidden advantages, learning opportunities, and growth potential that exist within every challenge. Reframing works because every situation contains multiple interpretations, and the interpretation you choose determines your emotional response, your available options, and your likelihood of success. Problem-focused people automatically interpret challenges as threats, which triggers stress, narrows their thinking, and leads to defensive behavior. Solution-focused people automatically interpret challenges as opportunities, which triggers excitement, broadens their thinking, and leads to creative action. The first reframing technique is called the opportunity scan. When you encounter any challenge, immediately ask yourself 3 specific questions. What could this situation teach me? How could this experience make me stronger? And what possibilities does this open up that wouldn't exist otherwise? These questions force your brain to search for positive aspects of the situation. Your brain is essentially a search engine, and it will find whatever you're looking for. If you're looking for problems, you'll find them. If you're looking for opportunities, you'll find those instead. For example, if you lose your job, the problem frame focuses on lost income, damaged reputation, and financial stress. The opportunity frame focuses on the chance to pursue a better position, learn new skills, or start a business you've been considering. Both interpretations acknowledge the same facts, but they lead to completely different emotional states and action plans. The second reframing technique is called competitive advantage identification. Every challenge you face is also being faced by your competitors, colleagues, or peers. The question is, how can you respond to this challenge in a way that gives you an advantage over others who are facing the same situation? Most people respond to challenges by trying to get back to where they were before the challenge occurred. Solution-focused people respond to challenges by using them as springboards to reach higher levels than they've ever achieved before. They understand that challenges are universal, but responses are what create differentiation. When the economy struggles, most businesses focus on survival. Smart businesses focus on using the downturn to improve their operations, acquire talent, and position themselves for explosive growth when conditions improve. When an industry faces disruption, most companies resist the change. Smart companies figure out how to lead the change and capture the opportunities it creates. The third reframing technique is called resource expansion. Problem-focused people see challenges as depleting their resources. Solution-focused people see challenges as opportunities to develop new resources. Every problem you solve makes you stronger, smarter, and more capable of solving future problems. Think about the most difficult challenges you've overcome in your life. How did conquering those challenges change you? What capabilities did you develop? What confidence did you gain? What relationships did you build? What knowledge did you acquire? The resources you gained from overcoming those challenges probably far exceeded the resources you expended solving them. This perspective transforms your relationship with difficulty. Instead of seeing challenges as costs, you see them as investments. Instead of avoiding difficult situations, you actively seek out challenges that will help you grow. This shift alone dramatically accelerates your personal and professional development. The fourth reframing technique is called timing optimization. Problem-focused people see challenges as interruptions that occur at the worst possible times. Solution-focused people understand that the best time to develop new capabilities, strengthen relationships, and gain competitive advantages is often during challenging periods. Economic downturns create opportunities to acquire assets at discount prices. Industry disruptions create opportunities to establish new market positions. Personal setbacks create opportunities to reassess priorities and make necessary changes that you've been postponing. The key is recognizing that timing is often perfect, even when it doesn't feel that way. The fifth reframing technique is called story restructuring. Your brain makes sense of events by creating narratives, and the story you tell yourself about what's happening determines how you feel and what actions you take. Problem-focused people create victim stories where things happen to them. Solution-focused people create hero stories where they actively shape their outcomes. In victim stories, you're at the mercy of circumstances beyond your control. In hero stories, you're the protagonist who faces challenges, develops new capabilities, and ultimately triumphs. Both stories can describe the same events, but they lead to completely different levels of empowerment and possibility. The most successful people are master storytellers who consistently frame their experiences in empowering ways. They don't ignore difficulties or pretend everything is easy. They acknowledge challenges while maintaining narratives that position them as capable of overcoming whatever they face. These reframing techniques work because they literally change your brain chemistry. When you interpret situations as opportunities rather than threats, your brain releases different neurotransmitters that enhance creativity, improve memory, and increase motivation. You gain access to mental resources that simply aren't available when you're in problem-focused mode. Chapter 8. Solution-focused communication that transforms relationships and results. Most people don't realize that the way they communicate about challenges either amplifies problems or accelerates solutions. Problem-focused communication creates drama, spreads negativity, and keeps everyone stuck in analysis paralysis. Solution-focused communication builds energy, generates ideas, and moves teams toward action. Master this distinction, and you'll transform every relationship and dramatically improve your results. The foundation of solution-focused communication is understanding that every conversation is either moving toward problems or moving toward solutions. There's no neutral ground. When you engage in problem-focused communication, you're training everyone involved to become better at seeing what's wrong. When you engage in solution-focused communication, you're training everyone to become better at seeing what's possible. The first principle of solution-focused communication is acknowledgement without amplification. You can acknowledge that problems exist without making them the focus of the conversation. Problem-focused communicators spend most of their time describing problems in detail, which amplifies the emotional impact and makes the problems seem larger and more overwhelming than they actually are. Solution-focused communicators acknowledge problems briefly and factually, then immediately shift the conversation to solution exploration. Instead of saying, "This is a disaster and I don't know how we're going to handle it," you say, "We have a challenge that needs our attention. Let's figure out how to address it." The difference in language might seem subtle, but the impact on everyone's mental state is profound. Problem-focused language triggers stress responses that impair thinking. Solution-focused language triggers curiosity and creativity that enhance thinking. The second principle is question design. The questions you ask determine where the conversation goes and what kind of thinking you stimulate in others. Problem-focused questions keep everyone focused on what's wrong. Why did this happen? Who's responsible for this mess? How bad could this get? Solution-focused questions redirect attention to what's possible. What are our options? What resources do we have? What's worked in similar situations? Master solution-focused questioning, and you can redirect any conversation from problem analysis to solution generation. Instead of asking, "Why are our sales declining?" ask, What are 3 things we could do to increase sales? Instead of asking, why is this project behind schedule? Ask, what would need to happen to get back on track? The third principle is energy management. Problem-focused communication drains energy from everyone involved. People leave problem-focused conversations feeling overwhelmed, discouraged, and less capable than when they started. Solution-focused communication generates energy. People leave solution-focused conversations feeling empowered, motivated, and confident in their ability to handle challenges. This energy difference has practical implications for results. Teams with higher energy levels are more creative, more collaborative, and more persistent. They generate better ideas and implement them more effectively. By consistently using solution-focused communication, you literally increase the capacity of everyone around you. The fourth principle is assumption seeding. The assumptions underlying your communication shape how others think about what's possible. Problem-focused communicators embed assumptions of limitation. This is going to be really difficult. I'm not sure we can pull this off. There's probably no good solution. These assumptions become self-fulfilling prophecies that limit what people are willing to attempt. Solution-focused communicators embed assumptions of capability. We'll figure this out. There's definitely a way to handle this. We've solved tougher challenges before. These assumptions create psychological safety that allows people to think more creatively and take more intelligent risks. The fifth principle is momentum building. Problem-focused communication creates psychological momentum toward negativity and helplessness. Each problem that gets discussed in detail makes the next problem seem more serious. Solution-focused communication creates psychological momentum toward resourcefulness and action. Each solution that gets generated makes the next solution easier to find. You can use this momentum effect strategically by starting meetings with quick wins and successful examples before addressing more challenging issues. When people's brains are primed with examples of successful problem-solving, they approach new challenges with greater confidence and creativity. These communication principles work in every context, with colleagues, family members, friends, and even in your internal dialogue. The more consistently you apply solution-focused communication, the more you'll notice that the people around you start adopting similar patterns. You become a positive influence that raises the thinking level of everyone in your environment. Solution-focused communication also changes how people see you. Instead of being known as someone who brings problems, you become known as someone who brings solutions. Instead of being the person people avoid when they're struggling, you become the person they seek out when they need help thinking through challenges. This shift in reputation creates opportunities that wouldn't exist otherwise. People want to work with solution-focused individuals because they make everything easier and more pleasant. They want to promote solution-focused employees because they improve team performance. They want to partner with solution-focused businesses because they deliver better results with less drama. Chapter 9. Building unshakable confidence through solution mastery. True confidence doesn't come from avoiding challenges or pretending problems don't exist. It comes from knowing that whatever challenge you face, you have the capability to find a solution. This is what separates people with genuine confidence from people with false bravado. Genuine confidence is built on proven competence in solution finding, not on hope or positive thinking. The relationship between solution-focused thinking and confidence creates a powerful upward spiral. The more skilled you become at finding solutions, the more confident you feel facing new challenges. The more confident you feel, the more willing you are to tackle difficult problems. The more difficult problems you solve, the more skilled you become at finding solutions. This cycle continues indefinitely, constantly expanding your capabilities and confidence. Most people experience the opposite cycle. When they encounter challenges they can't solve immediately, they lose confidence in their abilities. Lower confidence makes them less likely to attempt difficult challenges, which means they don't develop better problem-solving skills. Weaker problem-solving skills lead to more situations where they feel overwhelmed, which further reduces their confidence. This downward spiral keeps them trapped in mediocrity. The first strategy for building solution-based confidence is deliberate challenge progression. Instead of avoiding difficult situations, you systematically seek out challenges that are slightly beyond your current comfort zone. This allows you to build confidence gradually while developing increasingly sophisticated solution-finding abilities. Start with challenges that feel manageable but require you to stretch slightly. As you successfully solve these challenges, gradually increase the difficulty level. Each success builds evidence that you're capable of finding solutions, which gives you confidence to attempt even more challenging problems. The key is maintaining a success rate of approximately 70 to 80%. If you're succeeding more than 80% of the time, you're not challenging yourself enough to grow rapidly. If you're succeeding less than 70% of the time, you're attempting challenges that are too difficult and risk damaging your confidence. The second strategy is solution documentation. Most people solve problems and immediately forget about them, moving on to the next challenge without reflecting on what they learned. This wastes the confidence-building potential of their achievements. Solution-focused people systematically document their problem-solving successes and the lessons they learned from each experience. Keep a solution journal where you record every significant challenge you overcome. Include what the problem was, what solutions you tried, what worked, what didn't work, and what you learned from the experience. Review this journal regularly to remind yourself of your problem-solving capabilities and to identify patterns in your successful approaches. This documentation serves multiple purposes. It provides concrete evidence of your competence when you're facing a particularly difficult challenge. It helps you recognize patterns in your solution-finding process that you can apply to new situations. It builds your identity as someone who consistently finds ways to overcome obstacles. The third strategy is skill diversification. Confidence grows when you have multiple approaches to problem solving. If you only know one way to address challenges, you'll feel helpless when that approach doesn't work. If you have multiple methodologies in your toolkit, you'll always feel like you have options. Systematically study different problem-solving frameworks, decision-making models, and creative thinking techniques. Practice applying these different approaches to various types of challenges. The goal isn't to become an expert in every methodology, but to have enough familiarity with different approaches that you can adapt your strategy based on the specific challenge you're facing. This diversification also prevents you from becoming overly attached to any single approach. When you have multiple tools available, you can remain flexible and experimental rather than rigid and defensive about your methods. The fourth strategy is failure recontextualization. Confident people don't avoid failure, they interpret failure differently. Instead of seeing failed solutions as evidence of incompetence, they see them as valuable data that brings them closer to effective solutions. This recontextualization transforms failure from a confidence destroyer into a confidence builder. Every failed solution eliminates one approach and provides information about what doesn't work in this particular situation. The more failed solutions you accumulate, the closer you get to finding the solution that will work. This perspective allows you to maintain confidence and motivation even when your initial attempts don't succeed. The most confident people in any field are usually the ones who have failed the most, because they've learned that failure is temporary, while the lessons from failure are permanent. They've developed the mental resilience to persist through multiple failed attempts without questioning their fundamental capabilities. The fifth strategy is teaching and mentoring. Nothing builds confidence in your solution-finding abilities like successfully helping others solve their problems. When you teach someone else to think solution-focused or mentor them through a challenging situation, you reinforce your own competence while developing deeper insights into the problem-solving process. Look for opportunities to share your solution-focused approaches with colleagues, friends, or family members. Offer to help others think through challenges they're facing. The more you help others find solutions, the more confidence you'll have in your own ability to handle whatever life presents. This strategy also expands your problem-solving experience without having to personally face every type of challenge. By helping others with their problems, you gain exposure to a wider variety of situations and solutions than you would encounter in your own life alone. Chapter 10. Advanced Mental Models for Impossible Problems. There's a category of challenges that seem impossible using conventional thinking. These are the problems that stop most people in their tracks because they appear to have no viable solutions. But what separates extraordinary achievers from everyone else is their ability to solve problems that others consider unsolvable. They do this by using advanced mental models that reveal solutions invisible to conventional thinking. The first advanced mental model is constraint elimination. Most people assume that the constraints they perceive in a situation are fixed and immutable. They accept limitations as permanent features of reality rather than temporary obstacles that can be overcome or circumvented. Advanced problem solvers question every assumption about what's possible. Start by listing every constraint that makes a problem seem impossible. Then, systematically challenge each constraint. Is this constraint actually fixed? Or does it just seem fixed because you haven't found a way around it yet? What would have to be true for this constraint to be irrelevant? Who has successfully operated without this constraint? And how did they do it? Often what appears to be an impossible problem is really a problem with unnecessary constraints. Remove or modify the constraints, and the problem becomes solvable. This requires mental flexibility and willingness to question conventional wisdom, but it opens up solution possibilities that others never consider. The second advanced mental model is reverse engineering. Instead of trying to solve a problem from your current position forward, you start from your desired outcome and work backward to identify what would need to be true for that outcome to exist. This reveals pathways that aren't visible when you approach the problem conventionally. Define your ideal outcome in specific detail. Then ask, what would need to happen immediately before this outcome for it to be possible? What would need to happen before that? Continue working backward until you reach something you can actually implement from your current position. This approach often reveals that impossible problems are actually sequences of very possible smaller problems. The challenge isn't that any individual step is impossible. It's that people can't see the complete pathway from where they are to where they want to be. The third advanced mental model is resource multiplication. Most people approach difficult problems by trying to acquire more resources. More money, more time, more people, more equipment. Advanced problem solvers focus on multiplying the effectiveness of resources they already have. This involves finding ways to make each resource do multiple jobs simultaneously. Creating systems that generate resources rather than consume them, and leveraging other people's resources through partnerships and collaborations. Instead of asking, "What resources do I need?" you ask, "How can I accomplish this with the resources I have?" Resource multiplication often involves changing the rules of the game rather than playing the existing game better. Instead of competing for scarce resources, you create new categories where resources are abundant. Instead of accepting traditional trade-offs, you find ways to achieve multiple benefits simultaneously. The fourth advanced mental model is perspective shifting. Impossible problems often become solvable when viewed from different perspectives. What appears impossible from one viewpoint might be straightforward from another. Advanced problem solvers systematically examine challenges from multiple angles until they find a perspective that reveals viable solutions. Ask how different types of people would approach this problem. How would an engineer solve it versus an artist, versus an entrepreneur versus a child? How would someone from a different culture approach it? How would someone from a different time period have handled it? How would someone with unlimited resources solve it versus someone with no resources at all? Each perspective shift potentially reveals solutions that weren't visible from your original viewpoint. The goal isn't to find the right perspective, but to collect multiple perspectives until you have enough solution possibilities to find one that works. The fifth advanced mental model is paradox integration. Some problems appear impossible because they seem to require contradictory solutions. Advanced problem solvers learn to hold paradoxes in tension rather than trying to resolve them immediately. They look for ways to satisfy apparently opposing requirements simultaneously. Instead of choosing between speed and quality, they find ways to be fast and high quality. Instead of choosing between cost and features, they find ways to be inexpensive and feature-rich. Instead of choosing between growth and stability, they find ways to grow rapidly while maintaining stability. Paradox integration often requires creative redefinition of the problem itself. When you can't solve a problem as currently defined, sometimes the solution is to redefine the problem in a way that eliminates the contradictions. These advanced mental models work because they bypass the mental limitations that make problems appear impossible. They help you see beyond conventional constraints, discover hidden pathways, multiply your resources, shift your perspective, and integrate contradictions. Used consistently, they transform your relationship with difficulty from avoidance to excitement, because you know that every impossible problem is just a solution waiting to be discovered. Chapter 11. The Solution. Focused daily operating system that guarantees progress. Knowing how to think about solutions isn't enough. The difference between people who occasionally apply solution-focused thinking and people who consistently achieve extraordinary results comes down to having a daily operating system that makes solution-focused behavior automatic. This isn't about motivation or willpower. It's about designing your days so that every routine, every habit, and every decision point reinforces solution-focused thinking. Most people wake up each morning in reactive mode. They check their phones immediately. exposing their brains to a flood of problems, crises, and negative information before they've even gotten out of bed. They start their days by consuming other people's problems instead of focusing on their own solutions. This sets a problem-focused tone that influences their thinking for the entire day. Solution-focused people understand that the first hour of your day programs your brain for everything that follows. They protect this time fiercely and use it to prime their minds for solution-oriented thinking. Instead of immediately diving into problems, they invest the first part of their day in activities that strengthen their solution-finding capabilities. The first component of a solution-focused daily operating system is the morning solution session. This is a 15-minute ritual that prepares your brain to operate in solution mode throughout the day. You start by reviewing your current challenges and identifying the specific solutions you'll implement today. Not just thinking about solutions, but committing to specific actions. This session serves multiple purposes. It shifts your brain into proactive mode instead of reactive mode. It gives you a clear focus for the day, so you're not wandering aimlessly from task to task. It builds momentum by connecting today's actions to your larger goals. And it reinforces your identity as someone who actively solves problems rather than someone who passively experiences them. During this session, you also practice solution visualization. You mentally rehearse yourself successfully implementing your planned solutions. You see yourself overcoming obstacles, staying focused, and achieving the results you want. This mental rehearsal strengthens the neural pathways associated with successful problem-solving and increases the likelihood that you'll actually follow through on your plans. The second component is strategic decision-making throughout the day. Every decision you make either moves you towards solutions or away from them. Solution-focused people develop the habit of asking themselves a simple question before every significant decision. Will this move me closer to solutions or deeper into problems? This question serves as a filter that helps you avoid activities, conversations, and commitments that drain your energy without creating progress. It helps you recognize when you're being pulled into problem-focused thinking and gives you a tool for redirecting your attention. Over time, this decision-making filter becomes automatic, protecting your mental resources for activities that actually create results. The third component is the evening solution review. Just as the morning session prepares your brain for the day ahead, the evening review processes what you learned and reinforces successful patterns. You spend 10 minutes reflecting on the solutions you implemented, what worked, what didn't work, and what you learned that will help you solve similar problems more effectively in the future. This reflection serves as a bridge between today's learning and tomorrow's application. Without deliberate reflection, most people solve problems and immediately forget about the process they used. They fail to extract the transferable principles that could help them solve future problems more efficiently. The evening review ensures that every problem you solve makes you better at solving all future problems. The fourth component is environmental optimization. Your physical and digital environments constantly influence your thinking patterns, usually without your conscious awareness. Solution-focused people deliberately design their environments to trigger solution-oriented thinking automatically. This means surrounding yourself with visual reminders of your capabilities, past successes, and current goals. It means organizing your workspace to minimize distractions and maximize focus. It means curating your information diet to include more solution-oriented content and less problem-focused noise. Every element of your environment should either support solution-focused thinking or be eliminated. The fifth component is energy management. Solution-focused thinking requires mental energy, and most people squander their best mental resources on low-value activities. By the time they encounter significant challenges, they're operating with depleted cognitive resources, which makes solution finding much more difficult. Solution-focused people treat mental energy like a precious resource that must be allocated strategically. They tackle their most important problem-solving work when their energy levels are highest. They protect their peak performance hours from interruptions, distractions, and low-value tasks. They understand that when your energy is low, your brain defaults to problem-focused thinking because it requires less effort than solution generation. The sixth component is progress tracking. What gets measured gets managed, and without clear metrics, it's impossible to know whether your solution-focused approach is actually creating results. Most people focus on outcome metrics alone, which can be discouraging because outcomes often lag behind efforts by weeks or months. Solution-focused people track both outcome metrics and process metrics. Outcome metrics tell you whether you're achieving your goals. Process metrics tell you whether you're consistently applying solution-focused thinking. By tracking process metrics, you can maintain motivation and momentum even when outcome results haven't appeared yet. These process metrics might include how many solutions you generated this week, how quickly you shifted from problem identification to solution implementation, how many times you caught yourself in problem-focused thinking and redirected to solutions, or how many other people you helped think more solution-focused. These metrics reinforce the behaviors that eventually create the outcomes you want. The seventh component is social reinforcement. Your thinking patterns are heavily influenced by the people you spend time with. If you're surrounded by people who constantly focus on problems, complain about circumstances, and avoid taking responsibility for solutions, their thinking patterns will gradually influence yours, regardless of your conscious intentions. Solution-focused people deliberately cultivate relationships with other solution-oriented individuals. They seek out mentors, colleagues, and friends who approach challenges with resourcefulness and optimism. They limit their exposure to chronic complainers and problem-focused thinkers. They understand that your social environment is just as important as your physical environment in shaping your default thinking patterns. This social reinforcement also involves becoming a positive influence on others. When you consistently demonstrate solution-focused thinking in your interactions, you not only reinforce your own patterns but also encourage others to adopt similar approaches. This creates a positive feedback loop that strengthens everyone's solution-finding capabilities. The eighth component is systematic skill development. Solution-focused thinking is enhanced by having more tools, techniques, and knowledge available when you encounter challenges. Instead of hoping you'll naturally become better at problem-solving over time, you actively invest in developing your capabilities. This might involve studying new problem-solving methodologies, learning about psychology and decision-making, developing technical skills that expand your options, or gaining knowledge in areas related to your biggest challenges. The goal isn't to become an expert in everything, but to continuously expand your toolkit so you have more resources available when you need them. These 8 components work together to create a comprehensive system that makes solution-focused thinking your default mode of operation. Instead of relying on motivation or willpower to maintain this mindset, you create structures and routines that automatically guide your thinking in productive directions. Over time, This system becomes so ingrained that solution-focused thinking feels natural and effortless. Chapter 12. How to scale solution-focused thinking to transform teams and organizations. Individual, solution-focused thinking is powerful, but the real breakthrough comes when you can scale this approach to influence teams, organizations, and entire systems. The leaders who create extraordinary results don't just solve problems themselves, they build cultures where everyone thinks and operates in solution-focused ways. This multiplies their impact exponentially and creates sustainable competitive advantages that are impossible for problem-focused organizations to match. The challenge is that most organizations are deeply entrenched in problem-focused cultures. They hold meetings that focus on what's going wrong instead of what's possible. They create processes that emphasize avoiding mistakes instead of generating innovations. They reward people for identifying problems instead of implementing solutions. They hire based on technical skills while ignoring solution-focused thinking capabilities. Transforming organizational culture requires understanding that culture is nothing more than the collective thinking and behavior patterns of the people within the organization. Change how people think, and you change the culture. Change the culture, and you change the results. But this transformation must be approached systematically, not randomly. The first step in scaling solution-focused thinking is leadership modeling. Culture change always starts at the top because people pay more attention to what leaders do than what they say. If you want your team to think solution-focused, you must demonstrate solution-focused thinking consistently in every interaction, meeting, and decision. This means reframing every challenge as an opportunity during team discussions. It means asking solution-oriented questions instead of problem-focused questions. It means celebrating creative solutions instead of just criticizing failures. It means maintaining calm confidence during crises instead of expressing panic or frustration. Your team is constantly watching how you respond to challenges, and your responses become their template for handling similar situations. Leadership modeling also involves being transparent about your own solution-finding process. Instead of just presenting final decisions, walk your team through how you identified options, evaluated alternatives, and selected the best path forward. This teaches them solution-focused thinking methods while building their confidence in your decision-making capabilities. The second step is systematic meeting transformation. Most organizational meetings are problem-focused by default. They start with reports about what's going wrong, spend the majority of time analyzing problems in detail, and end with vague commitments to look into it or circle back later. These meetings train everyone to become better at identifying problems while neglecting solution development. Solution-focused meetings follow a completely different structure. They acknowledge problems briefly and factually, then immediately shift to solution generation. They allocate specific time for brainstorming options, evaluating alternatives, and committing to specific actions. They end with clear assignments, deadlines, and success metrics. Transform your meeting culture by implementing the 3-to-1 rule. For every minute spent describing a problem, spend 3 minutes exploring solutions. This forces teams to move quickly from problem identification to solution implementation while ensuring that challenges are addressed rather than ignored. Also implement solution-focused questioning as a standard practice. Instead of asking, "What went wrong?" ask, "What can we learn from this?" Instead of asking, "Why are we behind schedule?" ask, "What would need to happen to get back on track?" Instead of asking, "Who's responsible for this problem?" ask, "Who has ideas for solving this?" The third step is process redesign. Most organizational processes were designed to prevent problems rather than generate solutions. While risk management is important, an overemphasis on problem prevention creates bureaucratic systems that slow down decision-making and discourage innovation. Solution-focused organizations design processes that encourage experimentation, rapid learning, and quick iteration. They create clear guidelines for decision-making that allow people to take intelligent risks without excessive approval layers. They build feedback loops that help teams learn and improve quickly rather than waiting for annual reviews. This might involve implementing rapid prototyping processes that allow teams to test solutions quickly and cheaply. It might mean creating innovation time where people can work on solution-oriented projects outside their normal responsibilities. It might involve establishing cross-functional solution teams that can address challenges without getting stuck in departmental silos. The fourth step is hiring and promotion alignment. You can't build a solution-focused culture while continuing to hire and promote people who default to problem-focused thinking. This requires adding solution-focused thinking assessment to your hiring process and making it a key criterion for advancement. During interviews, present candidates with realistic challenges they might face in the role and observe how they respond. Do they immediately start analyzing what could go wrong? Or do they start generating potential solutions? Do they ask questions that focus on obstacles or questions that focus on possibilities? Do they demonstrate resourcefulness and creativity? Or do they seem overwhelmed by complexity? For existing employees, provide training and development opportunities that help them develop solution-focused thinking skills, but also be honest about the fact that some people may not be willing or able to make this transition. Having a few chronically problem-focused people in your organization can undermine the entire culture transformation effort. The fifth step is measurement and reinforcement. What gets measured and rewarded becomes the culture. If you want solution-focused thinking to become the norm, you must create metrics and rewards that reinforce this behavior while discouraging problem-focused patterns. This might involve tracking metrics, like the number of solutions generated per challenge identified, the speed from problem identification to solution implementation, or the percentage of meetings that result in specific action commitments. You might implement recognition programs that celebrate creative problem-solving and innovative thinking. More importantly, you must stop rewarding problem-focused behaviors that many organizations accidentally encourage. Don't promote people just because they're good at identifying what's wrong. Don't give extra attention to departments that constantly need help solving crises. Don't celebrate employees who work excessive hours to fix problems that could have been prevented with better systems. The sixth step is creating solution-sharing systems. One of the most powerful ways to reinforce solution-focused thinking is to make successful solutions visible throughout the organization. When someone develops an effective solution to a challenge, that knowledge should be captured and shared so others can benefit from it. This might involve regular solution-sharing meetings where teams present successful approaches to challenges they've overcome. It might mean creating internal documentation systems that make it easy to find and apply solutions that have worked in similar situations. It might involve establishing mentoring relationships where experienced, solution-focused employees help others develop these capabilities. The goal is to create an environment where solution finding becomes a collective capability rather than just an individual skill. When everyone in the organization has access to the best thinking and most effective approaches, the entire system becomes more capable and resilient. The seventh step is external partnership alignment. Your organization's culture is influenced not just by your employees, but also by your vendors, customers, and partners. If you're working with external parties who consistently operate in problem-focused ways, their patterns will gradually influence your internal culture. Evaluate your external relationships through a solution-focused lens. Do your vendors proactively suggest improvements and innovations? Or do they just respond to problems after they occur? Do your customers approach you with collaborative solution seeking, or do they primarily contact you to complain about problems? Do your business partners bring new opportunities and creative ideas? Or do they mostly focus on limitations and obstacles? Where possible, choose to work with external parties who share your commitment to solution-focused thinking. When you can't choose your external relationships, be intentional about maintaining your solution-focused culture despite exposure to problem-focused thinking from outside parties. These 7 steps work together to create organizational transformation that goes far beyond individual behavior change. When successfully implemented, they create environments where solution-focused thinking becomes the default mode of operation for everyone in the system. This leads to faster problem-solving, more innovation, higher employee engagement, and dramatically better results. Chapter 13. Mastering Solution. Focused Thinking Under Extreme Pressure and Crisis. Anyone can think about solutions when things are going well. The true test of solution-focused mastery comes during crises, emergencies, and high-pressure situations, when your brain's ancient survival programming tries to take control. These are the moments that separate people who occasionally apply solution-focused thinking from people who have truly mastered it as a way of life. During extreme pressure, your brain automatically activates what psychologists call the threat detection system. This floods your body with stress hormones, narrows your attention to immediate dangers, and impairs your ability to think creatively about solutions. Your brain literally reduces access to the neural networks responsible for innovation, long-term thinking, and complex problem-solving. This is why most people make their worst decisions during crises. But crisis situations also present the greatest opportunities for breakthrough solutions when normal approaches aren't working, when resources are limited, when time is short. Conventional thinking often proves inadequate. The people who can maintain solution-focused thinking during these moments often discover innovations and approaches that wouldn't have emerged under normal circumstances. The key to maintaining solution-focused thinking under pressure is understanding that your brain's crisis response is automatic, but your response to the crisis response is voluntary. You can't prevent your brain from activating threat detection, but you can train yourself to quickly override it and shift into solution mode even when your body is flooded with stress hormones. The first technique for crisis solution focusing is called pressure breathing. When you're under extreme stress, your breathing automatically becomes shallow and rapid, which reinforces your brain's perception that you're in immediate danger. By consciously controlling your breathing, you can actually calm your nervous system and restore access to your higher-level thinking capabilities. The specific technique involves taking slow, deep breaths, where your exhale is longer than your inhale. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 2 counts, then exhale for 6 counts. Repeat this pattern for 1 to 2 minutes. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which counteracts the stress response and allows your brain to shift from survival mode to problem-solving mode. This isn't just relaxation technique. It's a tool for accessing better thinking under pressure. When your nervous system is calm, you have access to creative thinking, memory recall, and strategic planning capabilities that are impaired when you're in stress mode. Taking 2 minutes to regulate your breathing can dramatically improve your ability to find effective solutions during crises. The second technique is called solution-focused situational assessment. Most people respond to crises by immediately focusing on everything that's wrong, which amplifies their stress and makes the situation seem even more overwhelming than it actually is. Solution-focused assessment involves a systematic process for gathering information without triggering additional stress responses. Start by identifying exactly what needs to be solved without adding emotional interpretation. Instead of, "This is a complete disaster and everything is falling apart," you assess, "Revenue decreased 30% and we need to reduce expenses by $50,000 this month." Focus on specific, factual information rather than catastrophic interpretations. Next, quickly inventory your available resources without dwelling on what you lack. What skills, knowledge, relationships, tools, and assets do you have access to right now? What has worked in similar situations before? Who could potentially help? What options exist that you haven't considered yet? This resource inventory shifts your brain from scarcity thinking to abundance thinking, even in challenging circumstances. The third technique is rapid solution iteration. During crises, you don't have the luxury of finding perfect solutions. You need to find workable solutions quickly and improve them as you go. This requires abandoning perfectionist thinking and embracing what researchers call satisficing. Finding solutions that are good enough to address the immediate need while creating space to develop better solutions later. Generate multiple potential solutions quickly without evaluating them immediately. Set a timer for 5 minutes and brainstorm as many options as possible, no matter how unconventional or imperfect they might seem. Once you have a list of options, quickly select the one that offers the best combination of speed, feasibility, and impact. Implement it immediately while continuing to develop backup options. This approach prevents you from getting stuck in analysis paralysis during time-sensitive situations. It also builds momentum that often leads to additional insights and opportunities as you take action. Many breakthrough solutions emerge not from perfect initial planning, but from rapid experimentation and course correction. The fourth technique is stakeholder solution mobilization. Crises often feel overwhelming because you're trying to solve everything yourself. But crisis situations also create opportunities to mobilize help from people who wouldn't normally be available. The urgency of the situation often makes others more willing to contribute resources, time, and expertise than they would under normal circumstances. Quickly identify everyone who has a stake in solving the current challenge. This includes obvious stakeholders like employees, customers, and investors, but also less obvious parties like vendors, competitors, industry associations, and even government agencies. During crises, traditional boundaries often become more flexible, creating opportunities for collaboration that wouldn't exist otherwise. Reach out to potential helpers with specific, actionable requests. Instead of just explaining the problem and hoping for help, present clear options for how they could contribute. Make it easy for others to say yes by giving them specific ways to help that match their capabilities and interests. The fifth technique is learning acceleration. Every crisis contains valuable lessons that can help you prevent similar situations in the future or handle them more effectively if they occur again. But most people are so focused on just surviving the immediate challenge that they fail to extract these lessons systematically. During the crisis, keep brief notes about what you're learning, what approaches are working, what assumptions proved incorrect, what resources turned out to be more valuable than expected, what relationships provided unexpected help, what skills would have been most valuable to have before this crisis occurred. After the crisis passes, conduct a systematic after-action review. What were the early warning signs you could watch for in the future? What preventive measures could reduce the likelihood or impact of similar situations? What capabilities should you develop to handle these situations more effectively? What systems or processes need to be improved? The sixth technique is maintaining future focus. Crisis situations naturally pull your attention toward immediate problems and short-term survival. But the most effective crisis management involves simultaneously addressing immediate needs while positioning for long-term success. The decisions you make during crises often have implications that extend far beyond the immediate situation. Ask yourself, how can we handle this crisis in a way that actually strengthens our position for the future? What opportunities might emerge from this challenge that wouldn't exist otherwise? How can we use this situation to develop capabilities, relationships, or innovations that will serve us long after the crisis passes? This future-focused thinking prevents you from making desperate decisions that solve immediate problems but create bigger problems later. It also helps you identify opportunities for breakthrough improvements that often become visible only during challenging periods. These techniques work because they address the specific ways that pressure and stress interfere with solution-focused thinking. They help you maintain access to your full cognitive capabilities even when your body is telling you to panic. They prevent you from making crisis-driven decisions that create more problems than they solve. And they position you to emerge from challenging situations stronger and more capable than when you entered them. Chapter 14. The Long-Term Mastery Path. Becoming a solution. Focused leader that others follow. Developing personal solution-focused thinking is just the beginning. True mastery comes when you become the kind of person that others turn to for guidance during challenging times. When people know that you can find solutions where others see only problems, when they trust your ability to navigate uncertainty and complexity, when they feel more capable and confident just by being around you, that's when you've achieved solution-focused mastery. This level of influence doesn't happen by accident. It requires deliberately developing leadership capabilities that go far beyond personal problem-solving skills. You must learn to help others access their own solution-finding abilities, to create environments where innovative thinking flourishes, and to maintain unwavering confidence, even when facing seemingly impossible challenges. The journey to solution-focused leadership begins with understanding that people don't follow your solutions. They follow your certainty that solutions exist. Anyone can present a good idea when they happen to think of one. But leaders who consistently attract followers are those who maintain unshakable faith in human capability and resourcefulness, even when they don't yet know what the specific solutions will be. This certainty isn't based on arrogance or false confidence. It's based on deep understanding of human history, psychology, and potential. Throughout history, people have consistently found ways to solve problems that initially seemed impossible. Every technology you use, every system you benefit from, every convenience you enjoy, exists because someone refused to accept that a challenge was unsolvable. Solution-focused leaders understand this pattern and communicate it to others through their energy, language, and decision-making. They don't promise that solutions will be easy to find or quick to implement. They promise that solutions exist and that the team has the capability to find them if they approach the challenge systematically and persistently. The first element of solution-focused leadership is developing what researchers call solution efficacy in others. This is the belief that solutions are possible and that the individual has the capability to contribute to finding them. Most people have been conditioned to believe that significant problems require expert solutions from somewhere else. They've learned to feel helpless when facing complex challenges. Solution-focused leaders help people rediscover their own problem-solving capabilities. They do this by asking questions that guide people toward their own insights, rather than providing answers directly. Instead of solving problems for others, they help others become better at solving problems themselves. This builds long-term capability rather than creating dependency. This involves strategic questioning that helps people access their own knowledge and creativity. What has worked in similar situations? What resources do we have that we haven't fully utilized? If we could solve just one aspect of this challenge, which aspect would create the most impact? What would someone from a completely different background do in this situation? These questions serve multiple purposes. They shift people's attention from problems to solutions. They help people realize they often know more than they initially thought. They encourage creative thinking by opening up new perspectives. And they build confidence by helping people experience success in solution finding. The second element is creating psychological safety for experimentation and failure. Innovation requires risk-taking, and risk-taking requires an environment where intelligent failures are treated as learning opportunities rather than disasters. Most people have been trained to avoid failure at all costs, which severely limits their willingness to attempt creative solutions. Solution-focused leaders understand that breakthrough solutions often emerge from failed experiments. They create cultures where people feel safe to propose unconventional ideas, test unproven approaches, and learn from outcomes that don't meet expectations. They celebrate intelligent risk-taking, even when it doesn't produce desired results. This doesn't mean accepting careless mistakes or repeated failures from the same causes. It means distinguishing between failures that result from insufficient effort or attention and failures that result from genuine experimentation with new approaches. The first type should be discouraged. The second type should be encouraged and learned from. The third element is systematic capability development in others. Solution-focused leaders don't just solve today's problems, they build their team's capacity to solve tomorrow's problems more effectively. They invest time and energy in developing others' solution-finding skills, decision-making abilities, and confidence in handling uncertainty. This involves providing stretch assignments that require people to develop new capabilities. It means offering coaching and mentoring that helps people reflect on their problem-solving processes and identify areas for improvement. It includes creating opportunities for people to learn from each other's successes and failures. Capability development also involves exposing people to diverse perspectives and approaches. Solution-focused leaders help their teams learn from other industries, disciplines, and cultures. They encourage reading, learning, and skill development that expands people's toolkit for addressing challenges. They understand that the more approaches people know, the more likely they are to find effective solutions. The fourth element is strategic communication that maintains team confidence during uncertainty. Leading through challenging times requires the ability to acknowledge difficulties honestly while maintaining collective belief that solutions will be found. This is a delicate balance that requires sophisticated communication skills. Solution-focused leaders learn to frame challenges in ways that motivate rather than discourage action. They provide enough information for people to understand the situation without overwhelming them with complexity or catastrophic thinking. They break down large challenges into manageable components that feel achievable rather than impossible. They also communicate confidence through their own emotional regulation. People constantly monitor their leaders' emotional states for clues about how seriously to take various situations. Leaders who remain calm and focused during crises help their teams access their best thinking capabilities. Leaders who panic or express despair trigger stress responses that impair everyone's problem-solving abilities. The fifth element is building solution-focused systems and processes. Individual leadership is powerful, but systematic leadership creates sustainable results that persist even when the leader isn't present. Solution-focused leaders design organizational systems that automatically encourage solution-oriented thinking and behavior. This might involve redesigning meeting structures to focus on solution generation rather than problem analysis. It could mean implementing decision-making frameworks that help teams evaluate options systematically rather than reactively. It might include creating recognition and reward systems that celebrate creative problem-solving and innovative thinking. The goal is to embed solution-focused thinking into the organization's DNA so deeply that it continues to operate effectively regardless of who's in leadership positions. This requires thinking systematically about how culture is created and maintained through everyday practices, policies, and procedures. The sixth element is developing other solution-focused leaders. True leadership mastery involves creating other leaders rather than just accumulating followers. Solution-focused leaders actively identify and develop other people who show potential for solution-oriented leadership. They provide mentoring, opportunities, and support that help others develop their own leadership capabilities. This multiplication effect creates exponential impact. Instead of being limited by your own personal capacity, you create a network of solution-focused leaders who can influence far more people and situations than you could address individually. This is how lasting change is created in organizations and communities. The seventh element is maintaining personal growth and learning. Leadership development never ends because the challenges leaders face are constantly evolving. Solution-focused leaders remain committed to their own learning and development throughout their careers. They seek out new ideas, approaches, and perspectives that can enhance their effectiveness. This involves staying curious about human psychology, organizational dynamics, innovation processes, and emerging challenges in their fields. It means seeking feedback from others about their leadership effectiveness and being willing to adjust their approaches based on what they learn. It includes maintaining relationships with other leaders who can challenge their thinking and share different perspectives. Solution-focused leadership is ultimately about creating more solution-focused thinking in the world. Every person you help develop solution-finding capabilities goes on to help others develop similar capabilities. Every organization you influence towards solution-focused culture becomes a model for other organizations. Every challenge you help people solve builds their confidence to tackle even more difficult challenges in the future. This ripple effect is how individual mastery becomes societal transformation. By committing to the long-term path of solution-focused leadership, you're not just improving your own life or career. You're contributing to a fundamental shift in how humanity approaches its challenges, from reactive problem focus to proactive solution creation. Chapter 15. Your Solution Focused Future. Living beyond problems forever. You now possess something that most people never develop: a complete understanding of how to transform any challenge into an opportunity for growth, innovation, and breakthrough results. You understand why your brain defaults to problems, how to override that programming, and what specific techniques to use for finding solutions in any situation. More importantly, you understand how to make this way of thinking automatic, sustainable, and influential in every area of your life. But knowledge without application remains just interesting information. The difference between people who occasionally think about solutions and people who consistently create extraordinary results comes down to one thing: implementation. Everything you've learned means nothing unless you commit to making solution-focused thinking your default mode of operation. Starting today. Starting with the very next challenge you encounter. This isn't about perfection. You will still have moments when you slip back into problem-focused thinking. You will still encounter challenges that initially feel overwhelming. You will still face situations where the solutions aren't immediately obvious. The difference is that now you have a systematic approach for redirecting your thinking, a comprehensive toolkit for finding solutions, and the confidence that comes from understanding how solution finding actually works. The most successful people in any field share one characteristic: they understand that extraordinary results come from consistently applying simple principles over long periods of time. They don't succeed because they have access to secret information or special advantages. They succeed because they do what everyone else knows they should do, but most people don't actually do consistently. Solution-focused thinking is one of those simple principles that creates extraordinary results when applied consistently. Every day that you choose solutions over problems, every conversation where you redirect from analysis to action, every challenge where you ask, "How can I solve this?" instead of, "Why is this happening?" you're building a track record of results that compounds over time. The compound effect of solution-focused thinking is more powerful than most people realize. Each problem you solve makes you better at solving the next problem. Each solution you implement teaches you something that helps you find future solutions more quickly. Each challenge you overcome builds confidence that allows you to attempt more difficult challenges. Each success creates momentum that makes the next success more likely. Over time, this compound effect creates a massive advantage over people who remain trapped in problem-focused thinking. While they're spending their energy analyzing what's wrong, you're spending your energy implementing what works. While they're getting stuck in cycles of worry and analysis paralysis, you're moving forward with clear action and consistent progress. While they're becoming experts on their problems, you're becoming an expert on solutions. But the real transformation goes beyond just getting better results. When solution-focused thinking becomes your automatic response to challenges, it changes who you are at a fundamental level. You stop seeing yourself as someone who has problems and start seeing yourself as someone who finds solutions. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances and start feeling like the architect of your outcomes. This identity shift affects every aspect of your life. In your career, you become known as the person who makes things happen, who can be counted on to find ways forward when others are stuck. In your relationships, you become someone who brings out the best in others, who helps people feel more capable and confident. In your personal development, you become someone who consistently grows and improves rather than staying stuck in the same patterns year after year. People will start coming to you for advice, guidance, and collaboration because they know you approach challenges differently. They know that when they work with you, problems become opportunities, obstacles become learning experiences, and setbacks become setup for comebacks. You become a magnet for other solution-focused people and opportunities that require solution-oriented thinking. The ripple effects extend far beyond your immediate circle. Every person you help develop solution-focused thinking becomes better at helping others do the same. Every organization you influence toward solution-focused culture becomes more innovative, resilient, and successful. Every challenge you help solve creates a model for how similar challenges can be addressed in the future. This is how individual transformation becomes societal transformation. By committing to solution-focused thinking in your own life, you're contributing to a fundamental shift in how humanity approaches its greatest challenges. Instead of being overwhelmed by problems, we become excited by possibilities. Instead of being limited by current constraints, we become motivated by future potential. The future belongs to people who can find solutions where others see only problems, who can create opportunities where others see only obstacles, who can maintain confidence and creativity when others are paralyzed by complexity and uncertainty. The future belongs to solution-focused thinkers, and now you're one of them. But your journey is just beginning. Solution-focused mastery isn't a destination you reach and then coast from. It's a way of living that requires continuous practice, refinement, and growth. Every day presents new opportunities to strengthen your solution-finding capabilities. Every challenge is a chance to test and improve your skills. Every interaction is an opportunity to model solution-focused thinking for others. The path forward is clear. Start immediately. Take the next challenge you're facing and apply the frameworks you've learned. Ask solution-focused questions. Generate multiple options. Implement the best solution systematically. Document what you learn. Share your insights with others. Build your reputation as someone who finds ways forward when others are stuck. Remember that every expert was once a beginner, every master was once a disaster, and every breakthrough started with someone who refused to accept that a problem was unsolvable. You now have everything you need to join the ranks of people who consistently create extraordinary results through solution-focused thinking. The only question that remains is this: will you commit to applying what you've learned? Or will you let this knowledge remain just another interesting idea you heard about once? The choice is yours. But understand that this choice will determine whether you spend the rest of your life as someone who has problems or someone who finds solutions. Your solution-focused future starts now. The next challenge you face is your first opportunity to demonstrate that you've truly transformed how you think about problems. The next conversation you have is your chance to model solution-focused communication. The next decision you make is your opportunity to choose progress over problems. Everything you want in life is waiting on the other side of challenges that need to be solved. Every goal you want to achieve requires overcoming obstacles that initially appear insurmountable. Every breakthrough you desire depends on your ability to find solutions that others haven't discovered yet. Now you have the tools, the understanding, and the confidence to find those solutions. The world needs more solution-focused thinkers. It needs more people who approach challenges with creativity instead of fear, with resourcefulness instead of helplessness, with confidence instead of despair. It needs people who can find ways forward when the path isn't obvious, who can create possibilities when options seem limited, who can maintain hope when others are giving up. You can be one of those people. In fact, after everything you've learned, you already are one of those people. The only question is whether you'll claim that identity and live up to your potential, or whether you'll allow old patterns to pull you back into problem-focused thinking. The choice is yours, but choose quickly, because while you're deciding, challenges are waiting to be solved, opportunities are waiting to be discovered, and a solution-focused future is waiting to be created. Your transformation is complete. Your journey is just beginning. Make it count.